Hello, my name is Derek, but you're more than welcome to call me Uncle Duck, and I hope you'll join me as I make my own custom YouTube play button. So before I make this play button, I want to talk just a little bit about it. Traditionally, YouTube play buttons are awarded to creators based on their subscriber count, and I believe the first one is a silver award at about 100,000 subscribers. And at present, I pretty much don't have any subscribers. So for this play button to me is more about a representation of the founding of my channel. It takes a lot for me to undergo an endeavor like this. I'm very introverted, so it's outside my usual comfort zone to put myself out there. But I really want to. I want to pursue being able to create items like this and others and to show them to you, show you how I made them, and perhaps even offer them as something you can purchase from me. I want that. I'm 42, and I'm really trying to pursue a life where my time belongs to me, and what I'm doing really means something to me. And something like this for somebody else, if they wanted one for their own YouTube pursuits, I want to be able to do that, and I enjoy doing it. And that's the whole idea of my channel, is to, let's be honest, we all want some of that YouTube money. So I mean, that's there. But like I say, this and other items that I hope to make here in the future, if someone wants one and I can make it and they're willing to pay for it, well, that's sort of what I'm shooting for. And it's difficult for me to put myself out there at craft shows and things like that. I've tried that in the past, and it's a little bit awkward. So this is a big deal to me, and that's what this play button represents. I did design it. Obviously, I produced it. I made it. You'll see that here in a bit. But I guess I don't know what else to say. It's a big step, and I just have a good feeling about it, despite maybe some nerves. So I hope you'll join me as I make it. Thank you for watching. Okay, so here we are at the router. This is a reshoot because I had my microphone here in my pocket, and as I kept turning, it was scratching. So live and learn. Anyhow, we've got our workpiece loaded up in our router. It's an oak stair tread. It's cut to about 14 and a half. It finishes at 14, so plenty of room there. We've already touched off. I'm basically ready to go. I wanted to cut out a lot of the nuance, at least for this first video. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut out for the red portion of the play button so we can pour our resin for that part. By now you've seen the finished piece. I've already shown it at the start because, you got to reel them in. So we're going to set up for that. Now once we cut it out, I'm undetermined yet whether or not I'm going to spray it with a couple coats of urethane or a thin layer of UV resin. I'm kind of erring on UV resin because it can cure quickly. And the reason for that is I've worked a few times with wood and resin, and if you're not careful, you'll get air bubbles as the resin soaks into the wood. It'll release some air, and you don't want bubbles in the middle of your piece. And I can't put this in a vacuum chamber or a pressure chamber. So I'll get you in here, get you zoomed in. Our piece is screwed in from the back side on the base piece, and then the base piece itself is clamped down to the table. And I like to do that because I don't have to worry about clamps cutting into my clamps, and I can cut out the outside to size. And basically once this is done, I can pull it off and it's more or less complete, aside from the nameplate, which we're going to do separately in the laser cutter. So for now, we're touched off, we're set up, we're ready to go. I'll just bring you in real quick for a quick sweep so you can kind of get a better idea of what's going on. And yeah, we should be banging on all cylinders. All right, so here we are at the router. We're a little bit closer here. We've got our workpiece. as I said, it's screwed in from the back side of our base piece, which I use these cabinet screws, and I like to use them because they sort of have, I don't know what you want to call it, like a washer almost on there, a big nice flat head, which I feel just really helps it grip, and then you can't dig in too far. And so then our base piece is clamped here at four corners. I want it to get a little, I usually like to be tighter to the workpiece rather than over here, but it was kind of a stretch trying to get it from this track here to here and then on the same back there. But we've got our 1/8" ball nose set up. We're touched off, and yeah, we're ready to go. Let's do it. Okay, here we are, and as you can see, we've got it cut out. Now, it didn't give me the prettiest finish on here, but I did program it to cut a little bit outside of the range that I actually need, so I'm not too worried about this frilly stuff out here. I really don't think that's going to be a problem, but I guess we'll find out the hard way. Anyhow, I decided to use some UV resin, and I'm just going to brush it on the whole surface here, probably even on the edges, and hopefully that will help prevent any air bubbles from getting into the finished piece, but I also don't want to put that on too thick. But I think that's my plan because I can do that in a second. It'll cure in maybe 10 minutes if I just leave the UV light on it here. I've got a UV light. So let's get brushing and we'll see what happens. I think we're a little bit cold here. It's not freezing here in the basement, but it might have been worthwhile to warm this up before I undertook this endeavor. That pretty well brushed in here. I will plug in my UV light, which will take just one little bit of a heartbeat to warm up there, and there we go. All right, welcome back. We're sitting at the bench here. We're to the point of doing our resin. I've already actually gone ahead and taken the liberty and mixing up 4 ounces. I'm assuming that'll be enough. We're gonna find out the hard way, but we're using Amazing Clear Cast. I don't know if it's the, the right stuff to use. We're gonna give it a go, but I decided to go with a traditional kind of red. It's maybe not the red, but it's a red. And I have a pink glittery black diamond pigment powder that I'm going to give a try. I'm going to put just a touch of that into it. I don't know how much of an effect it'll really have, being that we're going to have pigment in there, but I'm going to give this a try and just see what we get. I'm going to put really no clue here. Maybe just go with 4 drops. We'll put 4 in there and give it a stir and kind of see. I don't want to go translucent or opaque here, but I also don't want it to be as pink as it is. All right. I guess I really don't need to count my drops. We'll get that stirred up here. It's kind of more pink than what I was hoping for, and I don't want to go too, I also don't want to go too heavy on the pigment so as to have too much of an effect on the actual resin itself. I don't want there to be consistency issues. I think we're looking pretty good there. Not the best lighting. Unfortunately, the only other light that I have right now is right behind me, and a light behind me, well, up behind me, not from the machine, and it just wouldn't be very good right behind me, so I'll have to get some better lighting here. I'm just gonna kind of tap the bag here as I introduce the pigment, which again, I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have with a dye already in here, if that's going to affect sort of the glittery effect that I'm going for. A little more here. Whoop. I don't know if that came on camera, but we had a bit of a dust cloud, dust storm here. All right, so I can definitely see the glittery effect. Let me see. I don't know if this is going to be worthwhile, how well that's going to come through. Anyhow, we'll get the camera up to the part here and we'll get her poured. Well, as you can see, we got quite a lot of bubbles in there, so decided to go ahead and give her the old vacuum chamber treatment. All right, here we are at the part. We've got our resin. It's not quite fully debubbled, but as it sits here, the bubbles will rise to the top, and I think at the end of the day, we'll be okay with this one. If it doesn't work out, my next profile that I'm going to cut is the actual red play button itself, and if that doesn't come out, I'm going to leave this pocket so we can just recut it out, and if we have to start over, we unfortunately have to start over, but let's go ahead and pour and see what we come up with. It's actually still not quite as red as I was maybe shooting for, but I think it will do for what we need it to do. And actually, it kind of looks more red than what it did once it's poured in here. I have to be careful. I don't want to overflow. It won't be the end of the world, but I don't want it running off onto the machine anyhow. Not too worried about the top of the material. That'll get cut away. And then I'm actually going to cover this with a box because I want to keep heat around the resin. I kind of want to keep it in a warmer environment, but also I'm going to cover it with the box because we get these little orange beetles that come around every harvest season, and this year they came along in biblical proportions, and I have had them get into a pour of resin before and end up curing in it. So we do have a little bit extra left over. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and cover it up, and hopefully in 2-3 days it's well and cured and everything went well. We're going to find out. Alright, so nothing fancy, but we've got our box over our part here. That should hopefully keep the bugs away, but it will also hopefully keep some heat inside of within the box. We've got a 250 watt light here, and if you've ever used these things, you know they get pretty warm. So hopefully it doesn't get too hot, but we are in the basement, so we're combating a little bit of the cold. But I think that'll work. We'll see like I said, in probably 2 days or so. If even that, it might be sooner. It's not a super thick pour, so there we go. Alright, here we are at the laser cutter. We've got an X-Tool M1 10-watt laser, and you can probably tell already I've gone ahead and cut a piece out. I've done two actually. Just I wanted to test and see how well it would cut through the paint, and everything seemed to go real well. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to cut our nameplate out of this portion here, which I've painted with a black Rust-Oleum paint, spray paint. And then I actually used a Tester's model paint, gold, for the back, just because that's the only gold color that I have right now. And then over here we have silver for what will be sort of the hex bolts that look like they're holding the plate down. So this will engrave the name, and obviously it'll cut it out, and then it's going to do just a real light engraving where I will put the hex pieces, so it'll give me just a little bit of a location guidance. I'm going to try to record this. I don't know how well it's going to go. I have to close the lid, and that could it could impede it, and plus the laser head itself. So as you can see, it gives it a yellow. We'll see what happens. If it doesn't come out well, I'll probably just cut it here. Well, unfortunately, things don't always quite go to plan. I had cut this before, and I got a little bit of this sooty scorching stuff on the first piece, but it was only just a little bit down over here in the corner here. But this one just really seemed to take a beating, and I probably could just go ahead and paint over that, which I did the same on the first one, but there's the first one I made, and you can see how well that came out compared. So I did this, I guess, just to show the process that I followed, but it didn't turn out so well, so I'm going to just go ahead and use the first one that I made. And it didn't quite cut out either, so maybe I put the paint on a little thicker, I'm not sure. But we've also got our little hex pieces over here. And as you can see, I've been busy at the laser cutter. Let's do this. Let's put those here on the finished guy. How's that look? Not terrible. There we've got our hex pieces. That would be our bolt. We just need to go ahead and paint the sides there so they're not black. And we'll have this piece ready to go, and then we're just waiting on our resin. Alright, quick pro tip. If you ever need to paint some little parts like this is a great method to not have to handle them. Put the piece of tape sticky side up and use two other little strips to hold that down, and as long as you're real light and easy with your brush. These didn't turn out, I might have to actually touch these up a little more, but you don't get your hand full of paint, your fingers anyhow. Alright, here we are back at the router. Our resin is all cured up. I started it about Saturday night. It's now Monday evening. So we're a little under 48 hours, 2 days. We'll go ahead, we'll cut it out. Before we cut the whole piece, we'll just cut this portion out and make sure that our resin cured fully and well enough, and hopefully nothing chips. I've got some sharp edges. Well, not sharp edges, but when you get real pointed edges, sometimes they can chip off, and that can ruin a project pretty quick. But if it does, we'll still have this pocket. We can just pour and try again, and maybe we'll try a different color. Who knows? We'll find out. Alright, so here we are with our play button all cut out. Everything looks like it came out really well. We're here with the top-down view. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can kind of get an idea of the profile, but right now, since it's recessed in this pocket, it's kind of hard to get an angle on it where you can really see how much it rises up there in the middle. But I think once everything else is cut away and we've got a urethane on it, I think it's going to look really, really well. I'm pretty happy with it. Next thing is to cut out the whole darn thing. We'll do what I kind of think of as the TV screen. That was sort of one of my twists there. I'm sure I went over that in the intro video. But that's our next step. We'll cut out the whole thing. We should be able to put our nameplate here, and I'm probably going to paint at this point in the video, or in the process. I haven't determined what colors, or if at all, I want to paint what I'm considering the screen that's around the play button. And we'll just cross that road when we get there. For now, I'm really happy with these results. I think it's going to look super cool once this thing is done. Super stoked. Alright, so there we have her. We've got her all milled out. I did want to try to get more time-lapse footage. Unfortunately, I am recording all of this with my phone presently, and this ended up being like a 5.5 hour run. And, well, to be frank, I was on single father duty for the evening, so putting my daughter to bed and all that, it's just better to just have my phone on me. And, I mean, honestly, you kind of get the point of what the tool is going to be doing anyhow, and there's no point in time lapse and just back and forth here. It just would have been ridiculous. But you can see we still have some work to do. I'm not sure what happened there. I was trying some different tool paths. Typically what I would do is I use Fusion 360, and what I would do is a parallel path, which just goes back and forth over the whole thing. But I'm trying to eliminate a lot of axial movements, which is where it's going up and over, because it's just not great or ideal for my machine in particular. The bearings don't like it, and I have upgraded the bearings, but they still just don't like it. And too many axial movements, I've had it lock up on me to where it'll move down but not up, and then it just progressively moves down and down and down, and then you're plunged into your part. So we have some finishing work to do there. I'm probably just going to go ahead and hand sand it. Let's try to get a little better. There you can kind of get a little better look at it, but it doesn't want to quite zoom in there, does it? Let me try a zoom here. Not too bad, but I'm having trouble getting it, or at least having it focus. Anyhow, I've got a 1/4 inch flat end mill loaded up. I'm going to use that to cut out along the perimeter or the outer border. And let me grab this quick. I do have my nameplate here. I'm a little concerned that it might be a little big. I might want to downsize that a bit, but I guess the idea behind this was just to do something kind of different and out of the box. So anyhow, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and cut the piece out, and then we'll be able to unscrew it from our baseboard and do whatever sanding we need. And still undetermined if I'm going to paint this portion. If I do, I'm probably going to do a two-tone outside inside. So we'll just cross that path when we get to it. Okay, welcome back. As you can see, I've got my part on an easel here. I did get it all sanded up and decided to go ahead and paint it. I think what I'm going to do is black on the outside and gray, a dark gray just on the inside here. And I think that'll give a nice contrast to the red and to the nameplate that we'll have here. So I have it taped off with some modeling tape actually, and it's a pretty crude job, but I think it'll help us in the long run from getting any excess on the outside here. So I'm going to go ahead and just time lapse this, and hopefully everything comes out and we'll be happy. Alright, so there we have it all done and complete. I will admit the darker gray on the inside is maybe a little darker than what I was shooting for, but I think maybe once it's all finished and urethaned, I think it'll really show. And it is admittedly crude around the edges in some spots, but you know, I think for just some dude farting around in his basement, heck man, I can't complain. As long as you're having fun. And it's just, you know, it's my own project, so it doesn't need to be pristine. But I think with that, we'll get our nameplate glued on, and we'll get a urethane. She'll be done. Okay, here we are next morning. Paint's good and dry, probably dried hours ago. I'm ready to glue on my nameplate. And I took the liberty of centering everything. I just used a clamp over here with a tongue suppressor and another one here on the bottom. So when I'm ready to put it on, I shouldn't really have any issues to line that up. I've got a piece of scrap wood here that I'm just going to lay across kind of like so. And then I have two spring clamps that I'll clamp that down. And that'll be about it. And I wanted to mention, on this piece, I actually did leave the edges black, as that's how they came off the laser cutter. And I think I'm just going to go with that. I think it'll just give it a little bit more contrast as opposed to the whole thing being gold. So we've got our super glue. We're ready to glue. Let's glue. Should be pretty quick, pretty straightforward. Not too worried about the way this looks. You're not even going to see it, obviously. And this is a thicker glue, which I do like. A little bit of a thicker super glue. It gives me a little more working time. And I shouldn't need much for what this is. I'm just going to try to just go in a little zigzag pattern here and maybe try to get the corners just so I'm sure that they adhere pretty well, and maybe a little bit here and there along the edges. I don't like that spot there. I think that's gonna squeeze out. Okay. Fingers crossed. Put it up against the edge there and the edge there. Put our piece down. Squeeze clamp. Well, hang on. I need to maybe get a little more that way. Spring clamp there. And let's just double check, get a few pressure points here and make sure it's all compressed. And we should be good to go in just a few minutes. Okay, welcome to the Great Outdoors. We are ready to spray. There is some background noise, I do apologize. There's a gun range not far from here. We get planes overhead quite often. And there's a breeze. So I've got some quick dry, well, fast drying polyurethane. I'm not necessarily particular to it, it's just what I have. We'll give this a spray. It's about the end of January and we're sitting about 35 degrees. But once I get this sprayed, I will take it inside where it can dry more in a more appropriate temperature. So let's get spraying. I think this is going to look super sharp. Hopefully we have enough spray here. Now we're getting some, oh boy. There we go. Saw something just flew up here. I'm going to try to get just one or two quick coatings here. I don't want to go crazy. Is that something, or am I just seeing things? That is something. That's the other reason I don't want it to dry outside, is the odds of something getting stuck to it. Let's make sure we're getting all sides here. A little bit of shadow. Sorry, not sorry. Alright. Boy, that's looking pretty sharp. One thing I love about oak is the way it really gets a nice golden yellow color once you get a finish on it. I really should have bought a new bottle of, or a new can of spray here, but I think it'll get us through it. And I think maybe the nozzle's clogged a little bit, but it looks like it's done the job. And if I need another coat, I'll just get a can and we'll do it again. Alright, let's let her dry, and I think that's about a wrap on this one. Alright, so there we have it. It is a little glossy yet. It's still wet. I literally just sprayed this thing about 20 minutes ago. Alright, quick cut. My mind went blank. But anyhow, to wrap this up, I just want to say thank you if you did watch this video through to the end, and I'm not going to make a habit of asking for subscriptions or likes, but if you could throw me a like on this one, that's likes at this point when you're starting a channel can be detrimental, because that's what gets your content out there, your videos into the algorithm. So I hope I earned one or the other of those today, and just thank you for coming along with me on this one. This is going to be a journey, I think.